Hey guys, I'm Mike and I make stuff. Alright, confession time. I've always had a little bit of a love-hate relationship with this thing. I used to kind of avoid this thing, especially when I first got started. Every time I tried to use it, the cut was rough, there was a lot of tear out, and there was plenty of times when I wanted to chuck this sucker right out the garage door. If you've ever felt that way, trust me, you're not alone. But after a lot of trial and error and quite a few messes, I figured out some things that makes running the Jigsaw a little bit easier. So I thought I'd show you. Nothing fancy, no crazy hacks, just some basics that kind of made the Jigsaw start working for me instead of working against me. Without any further ado, let's get into it.
I fix them right up, and I'll make them better.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the bench. Welcome back to my belly. Let's start simple. You know how you wouldn't use a butter knife for steak, right? Well, the same thing goes for jigsaw blades. Most of the time when you get jigsaw blades, they come with a veritable cornucopia of different options. More times than not, I would just look on these and I would see if it said wood or metal or plastic or composite or whatever, and that was good enough for me. But there's a level deeper than that that gets you a lot more understanding. Think of this like a miniature handsaw. This obviously has the barbs pointing this direction, so it cuts on the pull stroke. Basically, think of your jigsaw as a very tiny, very high-speed handsaw, running this blade back and forth at a high rate of speed, so fast that it becomes a blur. But it runs on the same principle as your handsaw. It has a push stroke, it has a pull stroke, and on this particular blade, it cuts on the pull stroke. What I ended up finding out was that I needed to pay more attention to start with the blade size. Narrow blades, like this scroll saw cutting blade, it handles cutting curves a whole lot better. When it goes straight, a blade with a little more thickness to it is going to help guide it and let it track better. As you can see, one of these is a lot more aggressive and has fewer teeth with a larger bite, as opposed to this one that's smaller and a bit finer. For stuff like plywood that chips out super easy, the little fine-tooth blade is worth it. Also keep in mind that when I was younger, I'm not going to lie, changing blades really made me nervous. Check out this behemoth of a dinosaur. The reason it made me nervous is because there were set screws that you had to use in order to change the blade. You would tighten each of these down, and that was how you changed your blade out. But since then, things have gotten a lot easier. Now that we don't call them saber saws anymore, and we call them jigsaws, we have, it's called a quick release. And this type of end called a T-shank, which has this shape profile, which makes it really easy to do blade changes. It clicks right in and you're set to go. The main thing to know is, of course, if you're going to change your blade, when you do so, unplug it first. Trust me, I've scared myself more times than I want to forget. Now, the big thing about getting started with your jigsaw, the biggest thing that will change your results, clamps. The aggression of some teeth on a jigsaw blade will bounce that stuff all over the place. The more secure you can hold your work, the better off things are going to be. So let's see if we can make a test cut to kind of give some insights, and I'll walk along some of the things that I can tell you are going to really help you out as we go along, because that'll be the fastest way to do it. I'm going to use, for visibility, I'm going to use a marker. We'll try to cut ourselves a curve. How about something like that? So first things first, I know I've got some really interesting curves going on here. So in order to maximize my ability to do well, I'm going to find myself a thin profile blade. Something that doesn't have a lot of girth to it, so that it can follow the curve a lot easier. Because think about it again, very much like a handsaw. I can follow the track of my sawing very easily this way. But if I twist it, then I've bound up my saw in the curve and I can't pull it anymore. The same thing will apply with these. Remember, these work on the same principle as a handsaw. So if I give myself a smaller blade, I have less that I can turn, less material in the way, so that lets me make tighter curves. We'll insert our blade. So we're just about ready to cut. Let's go ahead, add ourselves some power. Now the next thing that I'll tell you is that pushing right up against your material and then hitting the trigger is going to cause this thing to jump all over the place. So here's one thing that always tripped me up. Trying to rush, jam up against the wood and engage the start. Let the jigsaw start running and get up to speed before you touch the wood. I can't say I reviewed any kind of science on it. I'm just saying I've noticed a few of those jumpy starts and that jagged edge. It doesn't happen if I do this and then move to the wood. Now I'm going to stop right there because I want you to see something really important. Notice that I've got tear out. I have a very small amount of material here. Adhered, it was plywood. Remember, this works like a handsaw, so it's got a pull stroke. As it pulled up, the barbs of the teeth grabbed a hold of this small piece of wood and delaminated it from the plywood. That's chip out. You can avoid that. It's going to sound odd, but wouldn't it help if you were able to just hold that down while you were cutting without being able to cut your finger, of course? If you could just hold that down so it doesn't split apart while your saw's going through there, then everything would turn out cool. Well, there's a way to do that, and that is creating what's called a zero clearance shoe for your jigsaw. If you want us to go through that, we can do that later on a more advanced video, but in the meantime, one of the things that you can do is laying some painter's tape. But in this case, it's not going to bother us because this is the waste side that we don't want to keep anymore. We're looking to preserve the rest of this. So let's see if we can continue now that we've talked about the tear out. As you can see, we were able to carry out the rest of it with a smooth cut, smooth finish, and then nice and square. Now the reason that I was able to do that is because I slowed down, I didn't rush, and I let the blade take its time to remove the material instead of trying to force it through there like some big gorilla. There's no need to do that. This thing is made for delicacy, and it will do very delicate things if you treat it delicately. Let's take a look at our finished cut. As you can see, we took our time, we made our cut, and followed along with a nice smooth edge. That's because we chose a fine tooth blade with a small profile. We took our time. We let the saw do the work rather than forcing it to do more than it can. The other thing I can tell you is that if you're going to cut something on the interior, let's say you want to cut out this shape from the inside of the board, you'll be doing yourself a huge favor by having a jigsaw, because that's about the only saw that will be able to do that. You can't do it with a bandsaw or anything else. Drill a hole through the waste material inside the hole, something like this. Now what I've done is I've created a hole in the middle of my waste material. So that will give my saw a place to plunge through, come out the other side, and engage in the cut. Okay, so again, we got a clamp holding our material. We're gonna put our blade into the hole. We're gonna make sure it's not touching the wood before we push the power and get started. I'll stop in place, let my blade completely stop, and I can reposition my material to continue the cut. I'm going to reposition again because my clamp is in the way of my saw. I have stopped because my saw is now at a funny angle. I can rotate the piece and work with the saw a lot easier. Just like that, follow my cut, smooth edges, feeling great. Was this some kind of groundbreaking, innovative video? No, not really. None of it is magic, none of it is tips or hacks. It's just things nobody told me, or that I had to learn by myself making a mess. If you have your own tips, or maybe just another horror story, throw it in the comments. I promise every one of us starts out frustrated, especially with a machine like this because so few people actually give it any love anymore. But it does get easier. Get pretty good with it if you practice. Alright, I think that's about enough of this video, and I think that's about enough shop talk. Go get your Jigsaw another shot. If you make something cool or you end up crashing and burning, let me know. I'm happy to be able to help, and we'll all learn from it together. I hope you guys are enjoying these Give Me a Few Minutes videos. Give me a few minutes, I'll show you how to use a jigsaw. As I said in the table saw video, I'll continue to move on with these throughout a variety of tools. All you gotta do is give me the feedback. Let me know. You can drop a comment on this video or any of my other videos on my channel, or you can visit me at mikeismakingstuff.com and leave me a message there. Until next time, guys, appreciate it. Thanks for giving me a few minutes.
I fix them right